Hello, my name is Carmen Bellows, one of the co-founders of The Great Lesser Known, a website that illuminates lesser-known artists in Middle Tennessee. Today I have the great pleasure of speaking with Leslie Haines, graphic designer, artist, and professor. Hello, Leslie.
Hi there.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
My pleasure.
My first question to you is, I understand that you're from New York. How did you end up here in Middle Tennessee?
Yeah, it never thought I would end up in Tennessee. I grew up in upstate New York, and it was great. And I did an undergrad in Buffalo, and I ended up in Syracuse, where I got my first job. And about 7 years into my career, I was feeling like I needed a little more inspiration and education. So I enrolled in this master's program at Syracuse University, which was an MA in advertising design, which was fabulous because I learned from professionals in the industry. It wasn't just these tenured professors, which are great, but I also learned from people doing it every day. And we traveled and we went to New York and London and Chicago and Toronto, and we got to visit studios and agencies and things, and that was great. But it was in what they call a limited residency program. So there were people from all over the country in the program. And so I met this guy from Nashville. And at the time I was thinking, okay, you know, I really want to start my own graphic design business. Upstate New York economy wasn't so great. Weather was not really fun anymore. The winters, the long, harsh winters. So I was looking into moving a little south, but never really had Nashville on the radar. And then I met this guy, and the first time I came to visit Nashville in February, and things were green, and it was just like, what is this? This is crazy, and I loved it. And the vibrancy, you know, we're downtown on a Tuesday night, and it's hopping, and there's lights and action and music coming out of every street corner, and it was so exciting, and I was just like, this is the place for me. And so I ended up coming here, you know, and we got married, and so I've been here 23 years.
Oh, you might as well be considered a resident.
I think I am. I think I am.
Yes. Yeah. So I understand you went to school for art. When did you become interested in art? Was it when you were very young, or
Yeah, I think I'm really fortunate. You know, as a college professor now, I deal with a lot of students who are struggling to figure out what they want to do. And I knew pretty early on that art was the thing for me. So I went to college, undergrad, Buffalo State for it, and knew that it was right for me. I never questioned it. I knew it was what I wanted to do. So it was really great. And how I kind of evolved into the artwork was, you know, I've been a designer over 30 years. And as a designer, you're dealing with type and color and composition and all these wonderful components. And I love being a designer. I love working with clients to help them build their business and you know, give them the results they want. But there was a part of me that was like, gosh, I really want to create for myself. And so I would do these little side projects and, you know, never really have the time to dedicate. So I explored a lot of different things. So it wasn't really until 2006 to 8 when I got my MFA in graphic design from Marywood University that I really was kind of forced to explore more illustrative stuff. I had to illustrate a children's book, and we were challenged with these projects that were more illustration based, and I never considered myself creative in that way. But what it did, it got me to this technique that I use now and that I use in this work, and it is a collage based technique where I do some 2D hands-on drawing, rendering, letterpress, you know, stamp my type, because I love letterpress, love type, you know, ink that. I may build some physical collage and then scan it in. And then I'm in Photoshop. I've been using Photoshop for years, right? So to me, it's like painting with pixels. It's the same thing as I would pick up a paintbrush, but I have all these wonderful opportunities to make decisions on the fly and be very intuitive in my process, because I can move things, or I can change the opacity, or I can add color, and you know, all those wonderful things. So that kind of combination of working with my hands and the computer has been the winning key for me, and it really got me into the artwork that I do today. And that started it, and I created, and the walrus was my first one, and I love Victorian engravings and the character of those images. And then I had my letterpress, and it just started. So when I did the 4 animals, they were so fun for me, exciting. They add my love of art, but my twisted little sense of humor. And it was like, I have to do, the whimsy. And I just was like, everyone was telling me, well, now you have to do the whole alphabet. So there we go. A major project was born, and I created it in 2014 and 2015.
So what are you the most proud of? It sounds like you've had quite a career as far as evolving in your career and navigating your path. What are you the most proud of regarding your art up to this point?
Well, I really loved having my own design business because I really loved working, especially with some of the smaller clients, you know, to help create identities for them and pieces for them that would really help promote them. And you know, when I did one of my favorite projects was a logo design for Athena Productions, and my client was so happy with the logo when I first presented it to her that it brought tears to her eyes. And it's like, I touched someone that way with my work, with my design, and it helped her because it was exactly what she was looking for. So that was, I mean, it was a small project, but that has so much meaning for me. And
that gives me chills to think about that you touched them at that core.
Because logos are personal, right? Especially if you're a small business person. So it's a very kind of personal thing, and to think that someone gets you in that way. So that was one of my favorite business successes. And then as far as with the artwork, you know, doing this series, I did a few little showings in Hillsborough Village at Belcourt and Fido when I hadn't even completed the series. I had like 10 of them done, and that was exciting. And then I got into Art Eclectic at University School, my first show, and I exhibited the whole series there for the first time a month before that. So it was great, and all the kids at the school could see it. But then the FRIST, Center for Visual Arts, was seeking submissions to this jury competition, and it was printmaking. They called it visual anthology, and they wanted to kind of reach out to the printmaking and storytelling community. And so I submitted a few pieces and got my C is for cat and my S is for slug into the FRIST. And to walk into, you know, an amazing gallery like that, amazing museum that we're so lucky to have, and to see my work hanging there was just the epitome. I'm like, I'm done. I'm successful. That's it. I can be happy now.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes.
This past summer, I also had 2 pieces go over to Australia in a show, a print show there in Cairns, Queensland, and would have been great to go to that opening, but I couldn't quite make it. But
it's a long way.
It was neat though to see. You know, it's like, hey, my work is in this international competition, and it's standing up, and that's really exciting. So,
did you ever see yourself getting this far?
No, you know, because I never created the work to do that. I created the work because I had to visually express something. And this series has brought me so much joy and all that, but when I started seeing how people were reacting to it, then I was like, oh, I need to really see what I can do with this. And I still think there's a lot more I can do with it. You know, I've started playing around with it. It's on my phone, and I made a couple pillows. I've got some t-shirts, and you know, I made greeting cards, which were very popular at Art Eclectic, and I think it speaks to people on so many levels. You know, it's either the initial of that belongs to them, and but then they see the quirkiness, and they start looking at each image like, oh, there's at least 3 things in here that begin with that letter. So it's kind of an alphabet book for adults, but kids like it too. You know,
it's fantastic. Yes, I love when you can take a look at something and see more and more every time you see it.
Yes,
and that's what I see in your work.
That's great.
As far as being a professor, I'm sure you inspire your students, and they inspire you, I would imagine, as giving you some new ideas, making you look at things differently. I can imagine that's quite fulfilling.
Oh, absolutely. I never intended to be a teacher. It's so funny how I fell into it. And it was when I was at Watkins, Watkins was my client when I had my design business. And the dean took me to lunch one day, and I'm like, "Ooh, I'm going to lunch. You must have a big project." And the big project was asking me to chair their new BFA in graphic design program.
Oh my gosh!
And I had taught one class at Syracuse University, and I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm doing, you know. But it was one of those things where that opportunity was there, and this is a story I tell my students because I really want them to be receptive to when opportunity is handed to you, even though you're not looking for it. So I was happy with my business, things were going great, but then here's this opportunity to do a kind of a 180. And I felt at this point, you know, I had been in the field for a while, I had a lot I could share, and it wasn't just the opportunity to teach, but to build a curriculum and to get that next generation of designers, you know, on the ground running. And so I kind of said, I'm going to do it for a year and see what happens, and if I don't like it, then, you know, no problem. And 15 years later, still teaching, and
fantastic.
I get the best of both worlds. I teach, I create, and I still design, and I just can't ask for more than that. But the students, yes, they're coming in, they're approaching things from so many different angles. I love the discussion we have. They're fascinated with what I do, not only with my design clients, you know, I'm doing stuff for Kenny Chesney and different, you know, music artists, and that's kind of cool for them. But then they see me doing this, and they're like, oh, you can create your own work and be a designer? And I think that's a great story for them to know, and that it can be, you can get pleasure from art in so many different ways.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with us, and obviously you're very inspiring to others, and
Thanks.
Your work is wonderful. I understand that you have won several awards for your work as well.
Yes.
And please go ahead and check out Leslie Haines' website,
LeslieHaines.com. Yep.
Check out her website, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.